This video is brought to you in part by the patrons of the Lazy Eyebrow, and from the comments and watch time from viewers like you. Thank you!
Doc, wait. Are you telling me you made a time machine out of a DeLorean? I did more than that, Marty. Marty McFly, meet Gigawatt.
Technically it's pronounced Gigawatt?
What did you just say, Gigawatt?
Why hello YouTube, greetings from the Lazy Eyebrow to a review I've been putting off for quite some time. This is the review for Transformers crossover series Gigawatt, or Gigawatt, a Back to the Future crossover with Transformers. So why have I been putting this off? Well, simple. I wasn't a fan of the finish of the body and was planning on painting it closer to resemble, you know, stainless steel, the thing the DeLorean is known to be made of.
Besides, the stainless steel construction made the flux dispersal.
So this was all filmed at the end of 2020. So let's back up to get more road and jump ahead 2 years and see what I've done differently to our flux capacitating friend. That's right!
Nothing!
All that build up for nothing. However, someone who did pretty much exactly what I was planning on doing was Hobbies with Jose. So click that little icon that's showing up right now to watch an entire playlist of him doing just that, and boy did it turn out great. Anyway, vanilla review of Gigawatt. Let's go. So Gigawatt is obviously based on the DMC-12, and more specifically the Time Machine from Back to the Future. As far as licensing goes, clearly they had to work out a deal with Universal, but I'm also wondering if a deal needed to be made with DeLorean as well. If so, coupled with the new tooling, this might explain why the price on this figure was absolutely insane! Like, I paid $60 for this figure back in the day that it released, which, that was during a time where deluxes in Canada were still $31.99, and not... So, yeah, we got a deluxe class retool because this is totally Siege Sideswipe as a movie tie-in for literally double the price. And what do we get? Not a whole lot. Like, the new tooling is great, I'm not gonna lie there. You've got this nice front end with this nice molded bumper housing all the electronics that glow blue and passing the speed threshold, though it's black, and I don't know why. It should be like this chrome, steely, metallic look, honestly. You get molded components with wires cast in soft plastic, bolted to the fender and painted brackets. Really nice molded rims based on the stock DMC-12 rims with their 4-lug design. Considering the way they all need to move later, I doubly appreciate the fact that there's no visible pin anywhere, or visible peg, or really anything. Like, the wheels have been designed so well, I cannot state this enough. You get all these molded components in the back with all the circuitry and Time Machine related techno clutter that surround the engine, and to its credit, this is all really nicely molded with the way the limitations go with molding and whatnot. Wires and bits and bobs make up the whole thing, right down to the plutonium chamber and the nitrogen vents found at the back of the machine. Not only that, there's molded taillights, a tampographed license plate from the first few minutes of the movie, all that cable managed track running up the sides is here as well. Like, whoever was the designer for this mold must have been such a fan, because just look at all the molded detail, and accurate to the best of his ability too, right even down to the finish of the body. Like, the guy molding this went to the painstaking effort of molding in the brush effect of stainless steel into the plastic, you know, to make it look like wood apparently. Jabs aside, this is seriously cool. I remember the Kingdom Beast modes having this much detail packed into their feathers and fur and whatnot, but I've never seen this much detail packed into a mold of a Generations figure before. It's absolutely insane though. It's also insane though that this is all unpainted. Like, why? Why go through all the trouble of getting the guy who designed it to have a brushed stainless steel appearance baked into the plastic, and then just leave it this dull base gray? Like, imagine how this car could have looked in Soundwave silver. But hey, we don't have to imagine. Jose showed us what this figure could look like in the proper colors, and what a jaw-dropping finish this would have been to have. I get it though, like, this is a masterclass paint job, and we're not going to get that for a deluxe price, let alone double the deluxe price. I can come to grips with that with all the detailing that Jose's put into his, but it really does go to show how something as simple as a base coat of silver on a stainless steel figure, especially on this brushed molding, would have just made the thing pop. Mind you, this isn't the first time that Hasbro has done the DeLorean dirty like this. Why hello YouTube, greetings from Lazy Eyebrow to a micro sub-review of a Micromaster Autobot. This is Autobot Swindler, a Micromaster from the Race Car Patrol. This was lent out to me by a boy named Seth who said I could look at it if he got a shout out. Hi Seth! This figure is also of a DeLorean, but the proportions are much more accurate to the shape of the real vehicle, right down to the molded suggestion of where the DMC badge would go on the grille, which is kinda cool considering the size and time frame this came from. It's using pins to keep the wheels on, which are pulling double duty as rims, which works really well to its benefit, and hey, look at that, painted windows with zero clear plastic. It's almost like something like this really works as a toy. I dig it. He also gave me this SO Robot Racer, which is a chibi-style Mazda RX-7 from a similar time era. This guy's name is
Mighty Man Number 2.
The proportions of which are kind of wonky in a cute way, though, like the Cherokee racers you saw with the likes of G1 Bumblebee or Cliffjumper. It's neat for what it is, and hey, it's even got a pullback gimmick. Neato! Transformation's pretty simple.
Mighty Man Number 2.
Just stands up and pops the head out, and Swindler unfolds the legs and pulls the hood down. These guys are pretty basic.
Mighty Man Number 2.
Retains the pullback feature, which is kind of funny. And Swindler is your basic Micromaster. He's got giant shoulder towers, and it is a decent robot for his size. Anyway, with those guys out of the way, let's get back to our main man, John. So as for accessories, John comes with 3. A time rifle, which I think is dumb, but we'll get back to later. The hook used at the end of the first movie, which totally surprised me. Seems like a really obscure thing to include, as useful as it was in the end of the first movie. And finally, the Mr. Fusion home reactor. The power of the nuclear fusion in the palm of your hand. I see no way that having that much power available to the mass public could go wrong in the alternate 2015 future. Anyway, these accessories function as you'd imagine for vehicle mode, in which the gun doesn't, and the hook plugs into a 3mm port found at the back of the vehicle just like in the movie, and man does it ever jut itself into the sky! Perfect for snag and hanging wires as it rips along at a much faster rate than the posted speed limit. Mr. Fusion pops himself into a port located on top of the plutonium chamber. This is actually my second copy of the figure, by the way, as the first one had a defective wheel, so having 2 versions of this figure, I can safely say that the connection piece of Mr. Fusion is just awful and barely stays in place, which is really unfortunate. As for vehicle articulation, he's got one of the most important features of all. The wheels actually fold down by design to give us the hover conversion as seen at the end of the first movie and all throughout the second movie, which makes it just so much fun to zoom this thing around and be like a flying car. I like that the feature was added. It would have felt morally wrong to skip it, and it's a really cool thing that they did. And speaking of iconic things to include, of course we have the gull-wing doors. It would just be rude not to. As for size comparison, John Gigawatt looks great with other mid-80s vehicle designs. I'd say he even fits right at home with them, and certainly fits in with other crossover customs I've been making, like Twin Cam, Flag, and Kit. As for actual scale, the vehicle is exceptionally proportioned, aside from the height being weirdly low. You can thank Sideswipe for that. And other similarly scaled vehicles are what you see before you. So that was the DeLorean Time Machine. Like I was saying earlier, the features, the molding, everything that went into designing the practicalities and engineering of this figure is superb. I do feel, however, that the art department dropped the ball so hard with even something as simple as a base coat of silver, which really bites, knowing this was double the price of a deluxe figure. And especially so when you learn that it, again, isn't even a new deluxe figure, but one coming directly from Sideswipe. For vehicle mode, this is fine, I guess, though the proportions get a bit off because of that, which is lame. Honestly, for reasons I'll get into in robot mode, I wish this had have come from something like the Datsun mold, but hey, even so, it does look great anyway, and even makes a nice companion piece for something like Trailbreaker.
The Transformers will return after these messages.
This episode of Lazy Eyebrow is sponsored by Ridge.com. Ridge.com is the place you can go to get yourself a cool wallet or a cool key case. Wallets that feature a slim form factor and a durable RFID blocking case to keep your card safe and free from cracking up and identity theft. Not to mention a key case which keeps all your keys lined up like a Swiss Army knife, which I think was really cool. Keeps them from jangling in your pocket, which is something I really appreciated. And keeps them all from jabbing your leg, which is something someone else appreciated and mentioned to me, and I did not know that, and that's a really good idea. Ridge.com is also offering a daily driver kit, so you can buy these in a bundle kit and know you're getting a good deal. Speaking of deals, use the link ridge.com/lazyeyebrow to get yourself up to 40% off. So thanks again to Ridge.com for sponsoring this video. You can find the link in a pinned comment or in the description below, where again, you can find up to 40% off deals through that link. Now back to the review.
We now return to the Transformers.
So to transform Gigawatt, you do it more or less the same as Sideswipe, with a few exceptions, first of which being opening the gull-wing doors, though even that's not that far off from what it comes from. You open the shins, you pull out the legs, push in the vents to push the feet out, close up the panels, and here's a new step, you pull this little section down from the fender. Then you pull out the arms, the fists, and straighten as usual. You fold in the front wheels, then start pulling down the chest. Wrestle with this sort of front panel that suffers from a myriad of clearance issues, but once you get it all sorted, it all clips into the waist and the shoulders lock it all together. And finally, you spin the waist 180 degrees. And here we have John DeLorean. I mean, it's got cool bits, but I'm underwhelmed, personally. Like the flux capacitor coming up from behind the back seat and resting on top of the chronometer display from the dashboard, while making no sense in a practical way, is just a really cool display feature regardless. Mind you, if you don't like it, you totally have the option of just not flipping that part around, so you do you. There's little flux capacitor details on the kneecaps and other greebly bits of techno clutter found on the shin, which make them really cool to look at. They'd be even cooler to look at if the art department wasn't asleep, but hey, credit where credit is due, and the designer of the mold did a really good job. That's kind of all I got. Like, strictly from a toy perspective, it's just a lamer sideswipe. Like, the decision to use sideswipe, despite the front of the DeLorean being an entirely different shape as the front of the Countach, means that Gigawatt here is a massive monolith of a chest slab, which I find more often than not he's having to peek over like he's buried in his own kibble, which is a little unfortunate. This is sort of compounded by a really weird design choice in the head. Like, it basically is just a modified sideswipe with bug-eyed rung-like goggles. I don't get why, but that's not what's unfortunate. It's this addition to the back of the neck. That little collar at the base is not present on Sideswipe, and as such, Sideswipe retains head moving, whereas Gigawatt just doesn't. This next bit is me being picky, so here's a time frame to skip to, but another minor grievance I have with using Sideswipe's transformation is that all the cool techno kibble is found on the back of the legs. Personally, this is one of those sections I find iconic to the movie vehicle, and to have it at the back of the robot is a little bit disappointing. I feel that it would have given the toy a lot more visual character if all of this was located at the front. I mean, I can totally display it on a shelf like this if I really want to, nothing stops you or me from making that happen, but obviously I can't animate it that way. Like, if it had to use the sideswipe mold, I think it probably would have been cooler to give it just slightly different leg mechanisms to flip the whole thing around. Kind of like how back in the day we had tracks, and slight changes made the mold into Wheeljack with legs in a different orientation to make the figure just feel that much more different. Or the same could be said about how Wheeljack was reused to give a Sunstreaker nowadays. Just a small change to really highlight what makes the DeLorean time machine so iconic, and also segregate it further from just being a sideswipe retool. Though if I really had my way, I'd say a transformation style like Soundwave or Prowl would have been a lot nicer with the way the hood would have been situated, and all those time machine parts making up the legs. I don't know, modified version of either would have been exactly what I would have done, and well, something I did do about 9 years ago as a LEGO concept. This idea has been rattling around in my head for close to a decade, and I'm probably taking this a little too personally. Anyway, welcome back to those that have skipped the time frame. Let's go for accessories. Again, he comes with a power cable hook. It has a 5mm port to plug into the arm, and aside from vehicle mode, it is probably one of the most useless robot accessories I've ever seen on any figure. I mean, what's he gonna do with it? Grab the mail? He's also got the time gun, or whatever this is supposed to be called. It's also modeled after Optimus Ion Blaster. I have no idea why this might have been chosen, but it's an odd choice for sure. Anyway, it contains ports for Mr. Fusion, so you can pop that bad boy on and get people with 1.21 gigajigas of electricity. However, there's 2 ports, so you can get a second Mr. Fusion and unleash the power of nearly 2.5 million watts! Special Time Force, you're under arrest! Move and feel the power of 2.42 gigawatts of power!
Wait, that's it? Double the wattage of lightning?
Yes?
Well, your funeral.
As for articulation, the head spins, but not easily, as brought out earlier by the molding and the weird choices and the problems that come with it. Shoulders rotate and go out and feature a bicep swivel and a 90-degree bend with hands that fold in, just in case you want to try and make him hold something with 2 hands. Waist rotation. Thighs go out backwards and forwards. Knee bends a terribly pitiful amount. Like, that's just lame. Thigh swivel and an ankle pivot. Articulation is really basic, all things considered, and hampered where it doesn't need to be, which is just sad. I mean, this thing could have been so much more. Anyway, for size comparison, here's Twin Cam, Kit, Flag, SS86 Jazz, Kingdom Sideswipe, and Breaker. For the actual scale, MB10 and its similarly sized variants, or in this case Magic Square Lighter Freedom version 1, Studio Series Soundwave, SS86 Jazz, and Classics Bumblebee. So that was Gigawatt, and like, the draw factor for wanting this figure is basically just what it represents. And don't get me wrong, that's really cool. It's cool that we have an official Back to the Future transforming robot. In practice, though, the price way back then was way too high. I'm sure aftermarket isn't much better. The paint is as bare bones as you can get, and the articulation was actually hampered by forcing this to come out of a car that was a very different shape, which is all really unfortunate. Because this is something I've wanted for literal years, and now we have it, and it's... This has been the Lazy Eyebrow.
just as surprised as you are that I reviewed this guy. I was not planning on it, but decided to on a whim. Kinda glad I did. I've wanted to talk about this guy for, well, 2 years now, and now I have. Like I said, underwhelming. I mean, like, if the paint job was better, I might not have thought the same. I mean, it's got some good qualities, obviously. It's not all bad, but, like, just, I don't know, everything I said in the last 15 minutes is basically what I mean to say now. Where am I going from here? That's the question. I don't know. So I'm not going to promise anything, because I don't know. But hopefully something a little more positive, because we've gone, what, now 3 videos where I've complained incessantly about useless garbage. I'm aware of it. I know you're aware of it. And hopefully we'll get a little more positive on track. I prefer that. Let's go to the next video. Bye!